Mitt Romney apparently forgot he was the nominee of the Republican Party. He momentarily believed that he could hire an openly gay man to be a public representative of his campaign. He was wrong. 2 weeks ago, Richard Grenell was hired to be a foreign policy spokesman for Mitt Romney. The decision to hire the former Bush-appointed advisor to UN Ambassador John Bolton was immediately attacked from the religious right because Mr. Grenell is openly gay. Because of the outcry during the 2 weeks that he was there, Grenell was associated with the campaign. He was never used in the capacity for which he was hired. Yesterday, Mr. Grenell stepped down from the Romney campaign, writing, and I quote, "My ability to speak clearly and forcefully on the issues has been greatly diminished by the hyper-partisan discussion of personal issues that sometimes comes from a presidential campaign." The question I need answered is, in 2012, someone can't be hired because he's gay? Really? Come on, this is America. Where have we gone? How horrendous is this? Joining me now from D.C. is Republican strategist and former McCain campaign advisor Ford O'Connell. Here in New York is Democratic strategist and president of Whitman Inside Strategies, Bernard Whitman. Thank you both for your time tonight. Ford, I just got to start with you. Is it really the case that the Republican Party won't let somebody who's gay be hired to be the public face on any issues? I just don't get it.
Well, we know that's not true. There's a lot of gay Republicans. They've been spokesmen before for Republican candidates and within presidential campaigns. I definitely think that from a 30,000-foot perspective, this doesn't look good for Team Romney, but there seem to be a lot more variables at play than gay politics. There's reporters who criticize his work at the UN. There's some disagreement over his role within the campaign. And obviously there's this off-color Twitter feed. So I think this story is going to blow over, but it certainly doesn't look good for Team Romney right now.
Look, Ford, I'm trying to be nice to you. I invited you on the show, so I want to be a friend. But wait a minute. You said it's not true. It is true. They fired him because he's gay. It doesn't look bad from 30,000 feet. It looks bad from 5 feet, from ground zero here. I just don't get it. I don't see how they dig themselves out of this, Bernard. But let me turn some friendly fire on you for a minute. This is 2 weeks after the president refuses to sign an executive order which would have extended to members of the LGBT community protection if they're working for a federal contractor. So is this, like, once again, open season on the gay community? What's happening here within our two political parties?
Well, I mean, truthfully, it's outrageous and disgusting. And what it really puts focus on is the fact that in dozens and dozens of states across the country, a man or a woman who is openly gay can be fired for nothing more than that, being openly gay. And that is why we need the protections of the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, which nearly passed the Senate like 15 years ago and has yet to be able to bring the force of vote to be able to get to the president's desk.
But Bernard, you're right. We need that statute to be passed. But the president could have signed an executive order extending that protection to a huge swath of the American public. He refused. So I'm seeing a spinelessness on the part of the president. I'm seeing a spinelessness on the part of Mitt Romney, who at this moment, and Ford, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but it seems to me this was a moment when he could have pulled a jujitsu and said, you know what's referred to politically as a sister soldier moment, stood up, looked at the theological right of the Republican Party and said, I believe in civil rights. Why didn't Mitt Romney, as a matter of practical politics, embrace this moment to stand for something?
I think because of the other variables in play, he had an out. I mean, Go Proud definitely agrees with you that he could have made this stand, but again, it seems that there are a lot of variables at play, and if you do make this stand, you really have to make sure you've got the right situation. I agree with you. This is campaign politics at its finest, but we also know that several people within presidential campaigns have been fired for any little thing out there, and I do hear what you're saying, because we know that there's a lot of gay Republicans who serve presidential campaigns and administrations quite proudly. So I know where you're going with this.
Well, look, Ford, I hear what you're saying. If you can ease somebody out quietly and avoid the public uproar that results, then that's the way you do it. But when you know that this will become a lightning rod issue that will merely highlight the degree to which Mitt Romney has moved to the right to satisfy the theological part of the party, then I think he does himself political harm as well as a sort of intellectual harm, because I don't think that's what Mitt Romney believes.
I think this appointment was a train wreck from the very beginning. The fact that Mitt Romney actually appointed the guy, I actually give him credit for that, but the fact that he did so without a plan to deal with the far right is outrageous. The fact that then when he was getting attacked from all over the place, they did not defend him, they didn't bring out any surrogates to make his case, I think is extraordinary. And I think it feeds the notion that Mitt Romney is a flip-flopper on issues from abortion to gay rights, and the fact that they could get this guy who had terrible relations with the press, who people that worked with him at the UN said he was the most dishonest press spokesman they'd ever worked with. I think this spells terrible trouble for the campaign, and if the guy can't run a campaign, how can we expect him to govern? I think the issue is much larger, frankly. I think it's much larger than just an issue of a gay guy getting fired.
Yeah, but you just said that he had terrible relationships at the UN when he was a spokesman, and that was under the Bush administration. And obviously, Team Romney's trying to cut ties with the Bush administration because all President Obama wants to do is tie Romney to Bush.
I think Bernard actually made a critical point here. The lack of foresight in gaming this out, the chess game that was almost necessarily going to result from the hiring is what I think most people could look to as the longer-term measure of the Romney campaign that until now has been pretty swift of foot in the way it handled these things. Let me switch gears for a moment. Newt Gingrich is gone. Does anybody care? Will anybody remember in 24 hours? Ford, is this the last of Newt finally? Can we finally sweep him into the dustbin of history?
No, actually, I think Newt Gingrich still has a role to play in this election. You know, Mitt Romney needs some attack dogs and some surrogates, particularly on issues like energy and Hispanics. And, you know, Newt Gingrich really has a keen knack when he stays on message for taking complex ideas and really turning them into palpable Kool-Aid for voters to digest. So Newt Gingrich has a role to play, particularly since the RNC and Team Romney are going to try to pay down his debt.
Ford, with all due respect, Newt Gingrich is like a bad cold that you can't get rid of. The fact that he was still in the race, I was like, really? He's announcing that he's going to get out, and then he holds the announcement, and he announces the following week that he's going to get out. The fact is, Newt Gingrich shot to the top of the list because the Republican Party had absolutely no love for Mitt Romney, and the reason why he got there is because Herman Cain imploded. I think it is critical.
No, you're wrong about that, Bernard. He actually got there because he was the best debater and the anti-Romney voting bloc. And frankly, he actually had a lot of criticism.
One at a time.
Go ahead, Bernard.
No, I think it's one of the last men standing, and I think the fact that that Rick Santorum and the Newt Gingrich have refused to actually come out and endorse the Republican nominee speaks volumes of the trouble that the Republicans are going to have pulling out voters when it comes to November.
All right, look, we all know.
I actually totally disagree with you on that.
All right, look, we all know that Mitt Romney got this nomination out of inertia. He's the only one who was able to just keep chugging forward over the finish line. Everybody else fell off one by one, fatally flawed candidates, and so it was his for the taking. But he's a weather vane nobody knows, and I think this issue of the firing makes it eminently clear. We don't know what he stands for on any given day. Until he shows the willpower and the backbone to stand for something, nobody's going to trust him. Anyway, Republican strategist, former McCain campaign advisor Ford O'Connell, Democratic strategist and president of Whitman Insight Strategies, Bernard Whitman. Thank you both for your time tonight.
Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you, Elliot.